Translations has been a topic I've avoided for quite a bit of time. This is because translations can be a bit intimidating to newcomers. It's not at all, but it is kind of boring and time-consuming. Throughout the years, developers have come up with solutions for translating scripts from creating arrays, classes, or even PECL extensions. Each solution has its pros and cons. WordPress has decided to opt into the getText extension. GetText isn't specific to PHP or WordPress. It's a standard created to help with translating programs. PHP implements getText into its programming language, and WordPress leverages this by providing an API. The getText extension is a pretty hard concept to understand and use, so we won't be going over how it works. It's not really the end of the world if you don't know the whole logic behind it. For the most part, you never have to worry about checking to see if this extension is enabled. Most PHP servers come with it installed and enabled by default. As a result, WordPress uses this translation system itself. If the getText extension doesn't work, then WordPress won't work. So it's safe to assume if a user installs our plugin, then they won't have any trouble with translations. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to WordPress's Internationalization Codex page. Here's what WordPress has to say about it. Internationalization is the process of developing your theme so it can easily be translated into other languages. Internationalization is often abbreviated as I-18N because there are 18 letters between the letters I and N. Seems like a complicated process, but I promise it's not. The first step to translating a plugin or theme is to make all strings inside the plugin or theme translatable. Fortunately for us, we've been doing that from the start. Let's go over some of these functions. Alright, so now I'm inside my functions file and I've added in some examples of the translation functions available. You do not have to add these in. This is just an example. The first thing you need to understand is a text domain. I've gone over it before, but it's been quite some time since then, so I'm going to review it. A text domain is a unique ID for your translations. WordPress, themes, and plugins will all come with their own translations. There is a possibility that there might be conflicting translations. To prevent conflicts, you can use a text domain. Text domains give you the ability to specify where a translation should come from. 99% of the time, you want to set the text domain to the name of your plugin or theme folder. In our case, it would be Udemy. WordPress will provide a set of functions for translating strings. For the most part, WordPress covers a lot of situations, so generally translating your theme or plugin isn't hard. We've been using some of these functions throughout the course. The first function is the double underscore function. The double underscore function is the most commonly used translation function out of all of them. It only has two parameters, which is the text to translate and the text domain. If there is no translation to be found, then WordPress will return the original string. This applies to most translation functions. If a translation can't be found, then the original string is used instead. The other function is the underscore e function, which does the same thing as the double underscore function, except it'll echo out the value rather than returning it. The third function is the underscore x function, which allows you to provide context for a translation. There are words out there that are spelled the same but have different meanings. By using the underscore x function, you can provide a comment to the translator for more information. In this example, I'm using the word bass. Without context, then the translator might have a hard time figuring out which bass I'm talking about. This function allows you to use the second parameter as a way to describe the translated text. It doesn't do anything for WordPress or affect the outcome of this string. Its purpose is just for the translator's eyes only. In this example, I'm telling the translator I'm talking about the instrument bass. The fourth function is the underscore n function, which is for plurals. This function has four parameters. The first parameter is for the singular version of the text. The second parameter is the plural version of the text. The third parameter is the most important one. You pass in a number. This can be hard-coded, or you can pass in a variable. In most cases, you'll want to pass in a variable. However, in this example, I'm keeping it simple. If the value for this parameter is 1, then the singular version of the translation is used. If the number is not 1, then the plural version is used. I'm showing how to use both the singular or plural versions. The next function is the underscore EX function. This function is a combination of the underscore X and underscore E functions. It will echo out a translated string that has a context. Likewise, we have the underscore NX, which will return a singular or plural translation that has context. That basically sums it up for these set of functions, but there is one problem with them. These functions should be used with caution because they don't provide escaped data. You should always want to make sure anything you output is secured and safe for the user. With that said, WordPress does provide a set of functions for escaping translated strings. Right below, I have some example of those functions. They are the same as the functions above, except they start with ESC underscore HTML. These functions will not only translate strings, but will also remove HTML. In this last example, I'm using a combination of functions. In some cases, you may want to allow HTML in your translated strings. For these cases, you'll have to use the double underscore function. However, you shouldn't allow all HTML to be passed. You can use the WP underscore KSES underscore post function to remove any harmful HTML or attributes like I do in this example. Alright, that pretty much sums up most of the translation functions. I highly recommend you give this page a good read for more techniques on how to perform translations. For the most part, I find myself using the ESC underscore HTML underscore and ESC underscore HTML underscore E functions for my translations. Now that we have an overview of our functions, let's start with translating our plugin. Since our plugin is translation ready, we have to inform WordPress where it can find the translation files. In the main plugin file, add the action hook plugins loaded. This hook will run when all plugins are loaded. This is the recommended hook for loading translations. The function to call is rloadTextDomain. Create a file in the includes folder named textdomain.php and define the function here. Lastly, include this file from the main plugin file. Inside the function, we have to call the WordPress function loadPluginTextDomain. This function has 3 parameters. The first parameter is the name of the text domain, which is recipe. The text domain name should always be the name of the plugin folder. The second parameter is deprecated. WordPress keeps this parameter for backwards compatibility. We're going to set this to false. The third parameter is the location to our translations. The path will be relative to the plugins folder. I'm going to create a variable named plugin_dir and set its value to recipe/lang. We're going to store all our translations in a folder called lang. It's important to note that you don't have to name your folder lang. It can be named whatever name you want. However, a lot of plugins and themes use the name lang as a convention. Lastly, let's create the folder lang inside the recipe plugin. That's it. WordPress will now load translations from this folder. However, we don't have any translations. Despite this, WordPress won't throw any errors if it can't find a translation. Now it's time to start generating some translations for our plugin. There are 3 important files when it comes to translating WordPress plugins and themes. That's the MO, PO, and POT files. Each of these have a purpose. The POT file is a template that contains all the original translations. WordPress does not load this file. The purpose of this file is for translators to make a copy of this file and then change the text to their desired language. However, this is a file that should only be modified by a developer. The PO file is like the POT file, except it's meant for translators to update. Just like the POT file, these kinds of files are human readable. Just like the POT file, this file is not processed or read by WordPress. The MO file is a machine readable file. You should never open or edit these files as they contain text that only servers are able to read and use. MO files are generated from PO files. Creating these files can be a bit challenging and time-consuming. Luckily, gettext has been around for quite some time and there are a lot of tools available for handling most of the work for us. I want you to go to Plugins, Add New, and search for a plugin called Loco Translate. Install and activate this plugin. This is a free plugin for generating all the files you'll need for translations. It's constantly updated and user-friendly. Let's get started with using it. The first step we must always take is to generate the POT file. I want you to go to Loco Translate Plugins. Here you'll find a list of plugins available. Click on the plugin recipe. You'll be told that there are no translations available for this plugin. If we were to click on the New Language button, you'll be told that there is no template for Loco to work with. You'll be given the option of generating a template, so let's do that now. You'll be told how many files are going to be scanned and where the file will be created. Everything seems good for now, so let's click Create Template. You should see a success message telling you that the template was created. Let's go back to the editor and check to see if the file was created. Inside the Recipe plugin folder, you should find a file called recipe.pot. Let's open the file and check out the contents. As you can see, the file contains all our translations. You'll first see this section where it contains information about the file itself. For the most part, you don't have to worry about this. It's mostly for the server to read and understand. Loco has taken the time to optimize this for you already. If you scroll down a little further, you'll see a list of translations. Each translation is broken down into 3 parts. The first part is this comment. A hash is considered a comment inside this file. Loco has taken the time to specify where you can find the translation by the file name and line number. Right after this, you'll see a key called MSGID. This will contain the original translation. After this is the MSG-STR key, which contains the text that the original text will be translated to. All you have to do is edit the text inside here. However, this file should be modified by developers only. If you are a translator, then you need to make a copy of this file and use the PO extension. We can do this manually, but Loco Translate can help us with this. Let's go back to the plugin page and see how to do this. I want you to click on New Language. You will be allowed to select your language. Feel free to pick any language you want. I'm going to select French. You'll be then asked where you want to save this file. Be sure to select the author path. You may want to select the other paths as files can be overwritten. Loco will provide a directory for your translations if needed. Since we're the developer of this plugin, then it's perfectly fine to save it inside our plugin directory. Next, click Create. Loco will then give you the opportunity to start translating your strings. First, you must select the string you want to translate. Then, you'll see the translation below. You'll also see an input field where you can input the translation. On the right, you'll see the comments box. If you can recall, we can give the translator some context just in case. This is where that context will appear. I'm going to select the text and translate it. The translation for recipe is recette. Just to save some time, I'm not going to translate all the strings. The last step is to just click Save when you're done. This will generate 2 files for you, a PO and MO file. If you open up your editor, you'll see these 2 files appear here. This is great and all, but I want these to appear inside my lang folder, so I'll move all my translations into the lang folder. This is one of the problems with Loco Translate. It'll only load the translations inside the root plugin folder even though you specify otherwise. Let's open the PO file and check out what we got. The first thing you'll notice is the file name. This is very important when creating translations. When you translate to a specific language, you need to add the locale to the file name. The format for the file name is the text domain followed by the locale. Local will take care of setting up the correct locale for you. This file is exactly like the POT file, except it will contain all your translations. You're free to edit this file anytime you'd like. The next file that's generated is the MO file. Under no circumstance should you open this file. This is because text editors tend to destroy the contents of this file. This file contains code that only machines can understand. Despite my warnings, I'm going to open this file. As you can see, there's all this gibberish that doesn't really make sense. The file is now corrupted, so I'll have to delete and generate it again. To generate a MO file, you can just go to Loco and select the translation file and click this button that says MO. You'll be provided a download that you can then just add back to your plugin. I'm going to do this now. Alright, so that's basically it for translations. Before I end this lecture, I do want to introduce another tool for translating plugins and themes. There is a program called PoEdit. PoEdit is a premium tool for generating PO, MO, and POT files. It provides an interface that will take care of doing all the coding for you. It also helps with translations into various languages, even if you don't know the language yourself. One of the benefits of using PoEdit is that it has support for WordPress. It'll scan your plugins and themes and look for translations so that you don't have to. However, to access those features, you will have to pay for the Pro version. I highly recommend you do so. It's definitely worth the money and it will save you a lot of time. It's especially useful if you have a large plugin with tons of translatable text. I prefer PoEdit because the translations tend to be more accurate and it will save files in the correct spot. I'll provide a link to this program in the resource section of this lecture. Install it, and if you can, purchase the Pro version. Before I finish this lecture, I want to test this translation. I'm going to go to Settings General in the WordPress admin dashboard. Scroll to the bottom and change the site language to French, or as WordPress calls it, Francois. Let's view one of the recipes. As you can see, our plugin has translated this text to French. I believe I've missed a few translations in the process, but overall it's good to go. That concludes translating a plugin. Translating a theme is the same process, so go give it a try.